A little closer. Thank you all so much for being here. We're going to go ahead and get started to be respectful of everybody's time. Welcome to the first public meeting of the North Potomac Yard Phase 1 redevelopment. Thank you all again for being here. We're going to talk through the exciting plans we have for this project. I'm Bailey Edelson with JBG Smith, the development partner for the project. Virginia Tech, our partners, obviously on the Innovation Campus, is here. And we'll talk through some of our other partners as we go. We're going to share information on the plan, some of the history on the plans that have already been approved, how we're going to be revising those to incorporate Virginia Tech, and bring about this innovation district that we've all been talking about. Thank you, Kathy. We do have translation services. If anyone needs them, please let us know. They're right over here in the corner. Oh, right here. Thank you very much. Thank you. And with this, I'm going to introduce Kathy Puskar, who's our land use counsel, to talk through some of the existing conditions and the history of the site.
Good evening, Kathy Puskar with Walsh Colucci, and I'm here on behalf of JBG Smith and Lionstone, and we are working in partnership with Virginia Tech on this exciting proposal. I'm just going to give a little bit of background for those of you who may not be familiar with the work that we did 2016 to 2017 in furtherance of the master plan for North Potomac Yard. I assume we all know where we are, but just in case, this is where we are. In particular, we are talking about Phase 1 this evening, and all our proposals relate to development of Phase 1 of North Potomac Yard. And yes, you see the target. It's on the other side of the street, so I'm just going to do that question now. Target is staying for the foreseeable future. Target will be, that area will be discussed at a future phase of development, which is off in the future, but Target seems to be a big priority for a lot of people. So what we are focused on is Phase 1 of Potomac Yard. And what you see here is the master plan that was approved in 2017. After a lot of hard work, community input, and meetings, we revised the original master plan that was approved in 2010 to come up with a new proposal focusing on, this isn't going to work well, focusing on the east side of Potomac Avenue. And we made some important decisions in 2017, including the decision to keep Potomac Avenue in its current configuration. Previously, in 2010, the idea was that Potomac Avenue was going to move. And when we revisited the plan in 2017, we realized that it would be a much better idea to leave Potomac Avenue where it is. But the most exciting thing that mobilized the changes in 2017 is the Metro and the new Metro station coming to Potomac Yard. And we knew that we wanted to do a development on the movie theater site as the first phase of Potomac Yard so that we would have ridership for Metro when Metro came, a place for people to go when they came off the Metro besides a surface parking lot and a movie theater, and then, of course, for the city's purposes, revenue that would be generated by the development to help the city pay for Metro. And so at that point in time, we had about 1.3 million square feet of development. You'll see on the southern block, 20 was a hotel. The blue on 18 was office. The kind of orangish red, 19 and 14, were big retail stores. And then we had residential, and we had retail lining that street, which is the red, with a school site in Block 4. We paid a lot of attention at that time to prioritizing pedestrians and making sure that we had safe passageway through the property. We focused a lot on environmental sustainability, on quality open spaces, and a healthy mix of uses and a healthy mix of building heights to build out that first phase as a place where people would want to come and spend their time, both live and work and play. So with that as the backdrop to kind of where we were, we actually are quite fortunate that in the, last fall, when was it? June of this year, the partnership with Virginia Tech was created, and tonight that's what we're going to be talking to you about, because our goal was to maintain the vision that the community worked so hard to create in 2017, but actually improve upon it, because now we have this awesome partner and we're really going to do something exciting here. So I'm going to turn it over to Brandy.
Hi, everybody. I'm Brandy Salmon. I'm Managing Director of the Innovation Campus. We are super excited by this project and consider it a once-in-a-generation opportunity. So thanks for having us here to talk about it. We know we are a part of something that's bigger than ourselves, and we take that mission really seriously. And so it's meetings like this that really help us connect with the community to do that. Okay, so this is just a highlights on Virginia Tech. Sometimes I feel compelled to say, yeah, we actually do education. That's not all new. We educate 34,000 students at any given time. We have 250 undergraduates. We have a really diverse research portfolio, $500 million plus research portfolio. And to know us is to know that a lot of that research is very applied. We solve problems that matter. That's a really important part of our mission. We produce a lot of STEM grads already, 5th in the nation in terms of output. This project is going to help us make a bigger contribution to really important fields, and we're a top-ranked engineering school. Our land grant mission and our commitment to the state is a really big part of who we are, and we take our service mission quite seriously, our mission of Oak Prosum. So what is the Innovation Campus? Innovation Campus is a graduate campus envisioned with master's and PhD programs. We imagine some undergraduate opportunities. Many of our students come from this region, for example. This would give them an opportunity to go to Blacksburg for their undergraduate education and perhaps come back here for a master's. So we really like that talent flow that this will enable. We see undergraduate experiential learning happening here in partnership with companies. And really, we see it as a magnet for partnerships and talent of all types. This will complement significant undergraduate enrollment in Blacksburg. And so there's a capital project in Blacksburg envisioned and an increase in 2,000 undergraduates in computer science and computer engineering. So it's a really important play for Virginia Tech in these important fields. So where are we? Well, you know where we are. We're here, but this is a slide that we use. It's this part of the project on the 15-acre side that Kathy mentioned as phase 1. But part of the larger innovation district over time. And we see our place as featuring essentially academic buildings. And Lisa Morris, the head architect for Virginia Tech, will share a little bit about that in 1 second. We really love the fact that it will be located next to the metro and see that as an important part of the kind of vibe we're hoping to support. So Lisa Morris, head architect and master planner for Virginia Tech, has been working tirelessly on this project. The fruit of her labor will be shown in a minute. You want to show your design principles?
Hi, good evening. So glad you guys could join us here tonight and talk about this great project overall, as well as our opportunity to talk about our part of that. And when the opportunity presented itself to Virginia Tech to be able to create an innovation campus, we went to work right away in establishing principles that are guidelines for us, and these principles that we developed early on have guided us to this point that we arrive at here today, this evening, and will continue to guide us into the future. And we are very excited that the principles that we developed are in excellent alignment with the principles that are in place and that are developing right now for the site itself. So that's a fantastic opportunity for us to plug into. Let's see, which one forward? Well, there we go. And this is our site and our campus, and we're really, really incredibly excited about this opportunity. We are very excited about the design that we have developed and are able to put forward for our campus in this location. And we feel really strongly that this design and what we're putting forward really helps us to establish a very special place that is uniquely Virginia Tech in Alexandria. Oh, sorry, one thing that I forgot to mention is the first building that we're developing is the one that it's labeled 7W on the top of that, but that will be our academic building number 1.
Hi, good evening, everybody. My name is Ken Wire. I'm zoning counsel for the Virginia Tech Foundation, which will be developing the site here that we're seeing in purple. I've been involved in Potomac Yard for over 10 years. I helped work on the 2010 plan, and I also worked with NIB. I want to thank Steve Bryce and Matt Clovis for the space. They've been wonderful hosts for Virginia Tech over the past year, while Virginia Tech engages with the community. So we appreciate you making the space available, and we're going to ask again. It's so nice. We appreciate it. So one of the things Kathy and I try to do in all of our cases is come to the community extremely early. We filed, Kathy, 10 days ago, something like that? And simultaneous with that filing, we let the community know we were going to have a community meeting and discuss where we are in the process. So we're very early in the process. We have the site in front of us, and Kathy in a minute will walk through what's changed. But the reason we wanted to start with this slide is this is the motivation for the change. Virginia Tech found that this site was extremely important to be able to grow a campus, not just a singular building, but one located in a place where people could live, work, and attract additional development. For those of you who don't speak city development terminology, this is a concept plan. We worked with the city about 10 years ago and came up with a process where we submit plans that basically say, what do you want to do and where do you want to do it? So this is the technical sheet. There's some full areas on the bottom. It's at the northern end of the site, and you can see in a minute, Kathy will walk you through the site context. But we've heard a lot in the news about what is Virginia Tech developing, and it's a 600,000 square foot campus is what we're entitling now. The first building is building 7W, which is approximately 300,000 square feet. At this point, it's a box and it's a shape. We've worked with Lisa and the university architects to say, if you put these footprints on the ground, what would they look like? What's a good shape, what's a good orientation, so we can program the internal parts of the building. One thing you'll see that's different here is we're putting a high priority on pedestrian open space and the ability for it to feel like a campus. So when you're in this area, you feel comfortable both indoors and outdoors and have a great relation, obviously, with the park that we'll be developing in the future. So as we come through future meetings, we'll begin to build on this site plan and put buildings on it in height and skin, but right now we wanted to show you order of magnitude, what we're developing, where we're doing it, and Kathy will walk you through the future communications, but this is really the sheet we just submitted and a direction where we're headed. I think there's one more sheet that I'll speak to. This is just showing the configuration. Obviously, it's to the north of the site, just to the north of Reed Avenue, and we have worked with the city on and internally about where do the road configurations sit. It's extremely close to what was approved the first time in 2017, and we think it's an improvement, and we're happy once Kathy finishes her presentation to field any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Ken. Oh, I'm going the wrong direction. For the balance of the site, I wanted to introduce our team. As I said, I'm Bailey Edelson with JBG Smith. We have been the development partner for the landowner since 2012. We are an S&P 400 publicly traded REIT with a focus in the DC area on mixed-use development. We pride ourselves in our placemaking abilities and our ability to activate amenity-rich, walkable neighborhoods throughout the region, very much like what we're hoping to achieve here. We've been in this market for over 60 years, and as Ken said, similar to the way he and Kathy approach this, we like to get involved very early and often with the communities where we work, and so we are very excited to start this process. We are partnered with Lionstone Investments. They are a data-driven analytics real estate investment firm. And they work nationally conceptualizing and analyzing strategies all across the country. They manage $7.8 billion in assets totaling over 17 million square feet. To build on what the Virginia Tech team talked about in terms of the innovation campus that they're bringing, we really view that as the anchor of what will be an innovation district. So they will have 3 wonderful academic buildings that will produce computer science research and development graduates, and we hope to build a whole district around that will support those students as well as everybody who wants to sort of live and work in that ecosystem and allow for high growth, research-oriented anchor institutions to co-locate with them, for their students to live in the area, for others who are working for companies that want to be around all of the exciting ideas that they're creating, and with that, bringing activated ground floors, inviting open spaces to help further the ability to attract talent to the area. As Ken mentioned, our first submission was concept plans around the master plan and a concept DSUP. So just to talk through the proposed master plan for the balance of phase one, we have 3 office buildings and 3 residential buildings, all with ground floor retail, lining that spine road going down the center of the site. We think that this mix and the location of these different uses really plays off of the 2 important anchors that are part of phase one, with the Metro at the southern end and Virginia Tech's campus at the northern end. So we've placed 2 of the office buildings close to Virginia Tech to allow for that co-location, collaboration, innovation to be happening, and then another office building, commercial office building at the Metro to sort of take advantage of those synergies as well, and then including some residential housing in between to provide housing for students, residents, employees, et cetera. To pan out a little bit, just so you can see kind of how that those southern blocks fit in with Virginia Tech's campus, and they mentioned that they're prioritizing the pedestrian and the experience at the ground level. That's something, those are design principles that we've carried through on the balance of the site, with the red bars along the ground floors, showing how we're going to activate that and really make it a wonderful sort of pedestrian-friendly environment throughout the entire innovation district. As I mentioned, we also have submitted a DSUP Concept 1 plan that gets into a few more details in terms of how are the buildings accessed, how are they loaded, how are they going to function, showing a little bit more detail in terms of this is the ground floor, showing a little bit more detail on how those will lay out. And I think the other thing we wanted to mention and highlight here is that the proposed density that we're showing here is 1.3 million square feet for the balance of the site, excluding what Virginia Tech is bringing. And that is consistent with what was previously proposed for the entirety of phase one. So in terms of the commercial and residential that we're bringing online, we're staying consistent with what we have, what was previously contemplated. This just gives you a sense of the upper level of those southern blocks in terms of the commercial space, the residential space, and how it all kind of fits together. I'll turn it back to Kathy to talk through some of the changes to the original small area plan.
Thank you, Bailey. I'm going to go back for 1 second. It occurred to me, I think both Ken and Bailey touched upon it, but for those of you who may not be as familiar with the development process, Ken had mentioned that we have a master plan, which were the big blocks. We have a CDD concept plan, and we have a DSUP, which is a development special use permit. To help you understand, the master plan is at about 10,000 feet, looking at what the vision is for this site for the future for both sides of Potomac Avenue. The CDD concept plan is a coordinated development district concept plan that once again looks at a bigger level of how much of each use, what are the heights, how much parking, where is the open space. And then when we talk about the DSUP, that's actually a very technical application where we will be working through the engineering of the site as well as the architecture of each building. And we start by doing a concept 1 plan, which is very similar to what you would see if you looked at the CDD concept plan. We will then move to a concept 2, and then eventually an application. And so we'll get to the process in a little while, but you're hearing a lot of terms thrown around, and I'm just not sure if everyone's familiar with what we're speaking about. So what has changed since 2017 to accommodate Virginia Tech? So we've added an academic campus, which is wonderful because it is really going to make this a more vibrant place, and I think you'll see a lot of growth and a lot of activity surrounding that. How are we going to add an academic campus if Block 4 was already destined to be an Alexandria City Public School site, and this is how we're going to do it? We have been working with ACPS and the city to discuss the potential relocation of that school site from Block 4 to Block 23. Block 23, as you can see, is a bigger block. And we are also working with the city to look at providing a larger block to transfer the school site to, so that we can also co-locate affordable housing. So the goal would be for Block 23 to facilitate both construction of a new school and construction of affordable housing. As we know, affordability is also a big priority. We will continue to work through those details with the school system and the city, and that approval to make that change will occur likely in the spring with the master plan and CDD concept plan changes. This is a big change. When we did the 2017 master plan, we actually had more retail contemplated for the project because, as I showed you previously, there were some sites that were scheduled to be larger, kind of like a fitness center or a boutique theater where there was going to be more retail, single-user retail. We removed that retail, but in 2017, we actually had a collector parking garage, which was an above-grade parking garage that was going to be wrapped with active uses on that north end. Well, the beauty of having Virginia Tech and the hard work that they have done with JBG Smith and Lionstone has resulted in that parking going below grade, which has allowed us to have below-grade parking, eliminating that above-grade structure, and as was mentioned by Lisa, providing much more open space and area for people to gather. We are suggesting the removal of the road that used to run between Block 4 and 7. We, as part of this process, need to update our traffic analysis because we are adding 600,000 square feet of academic use. We have a traffic consultant who will be providing a new analysis to make sure that we mitigate any impacts of that new use. But we believe that this road is not a major piece of the road network that we relied upon in the original plan. And so in the spirit of prioritizing pedestrians, once again, we are proposing to eliminate that road and create more open space. When we went through the 2017 plan, we hadn't really finalized the geometry of the terminus of Reed Avenue. So Reed Avenue comes up from the main shopping center, and on that larger circle there, it was left undefined. So we have now refined the geometry of that road and that location. Once again, having a pedestrian table to make it more pedestrian friendly, to slow traffic down. And then we also, you can see that there was this weird jog that kind of hugged the school site and Block 7. We have been able to finesse that geometry and smooth out that road, which will also be a benefit to pedestrians and vehicles. So some of you may be wondering, Bailey had said that back in 2017, we envisioned about 1.3 million square feet of development on this site. And now we're saying it's 1.3 million square feet of residential, retail, and office development, plus 600,000 square feet of academic use. How did you do that? How did you fit it? Well, the first is, I already mentioned, we put parking below grade, which freed up more site on Block 7. The other is we are increasing heights on the site. So we were requesting an increase in height on Block 7 West, on Block 10, and Block 14. And the height increase is consistent with what we believe to be acceptable to the FAA based on previous conversations and master planning for the heights in Potomac Yard. But by increasing that height, we can get more density and maintain the expectations that were set in 2017 because, of course, the commercial and residential development is going to spur the tax revenue that once again will help pay for Metro. And then we have a redistribution, reallocation of uses. You'll see that we have moved office. We have more office than we previously had, about 300,000 square feet more office than we previously contemplated. And we moved office closer to the Innovation Campus. Now, in Block 10, there will be a building which will be known as the Incubator Building, where Virginia Tech will lease space for their use. And we know and fully expect that other office users will want to be close to the Innovation Campus and capitalize on that energy and excitement and all of the innovative things that are going on at Virginia Tech. You have to remember that This entire site that we're talking about is within a quarter mile of Metro, except for Block 4. So even though, yes, we are moving office to the north, it's still within the walkable distance of a quarter mile, which we always talk about where office wants to be. And by moving the office to the north, once again, we can get more height, get more office density. We have slightly reduced the retail. You'll see that we no longer have the kind of, quote, big box uses that were contemplated before, but we are maintaining, lining the street with the retail uses. And so once again, just going back to that full build out of what you can expect in North Potomac Yard over the next however many years it takes for the market to decide it wants to fill in both sides of Potomac Avenue. So just want to take 1 second to talk about next steps. On November 20th, there will be a PIDAC meeting. That's what we call it. Everything's an acronym, but PIDAC stands for the Potomac Yard Design Advisory Committee. A little bit different from community meetings where we discuss any and all topics that might be associated with a development project like this. The Potomac Yard Design Advisory Committee is made up of citizens, architects, business people who are representing various constituencies in the area and in the city. And their charge is specifically to look at the development special use permit and to determine whether that development special use permit is in compliance with the design guidelines. So it's more about the architecture of the buildings and the site design than it is about, say, concerns that people might have about traffic or affordable housing or sustainability. Those items we will discuss in future meetings. There will be a series of PIDAC meetings. There will be a series of community meetings. And as we move through the process, as Ken mentioned, we're kind of in our infancy, but we're moving quickly. And we will be addressing various topics at future meetings to make sure everyone understands what the expectations are and what we are looking to do with the site, including with the open space park that's to the east of the road that runs next to Metro. We are anticipating public hearings in the spring of 2020 to get approval of the master plan, that 10,000-foot long-range vision, the CDD concept plan that I mentioned that's at about 1,000 feet, and we will get approval of a preliminary infrastructure plan. Clearly, we have a lot of work to do to get in to deal with the stormwater, sanitary, cable, Dominion, streets. And so those will be captured in a preliminary infrastructure plan that will be hopefully approved in March. And the idea of that preliminary infrastructure plan, this is consistent with how the southern portion of Potomac Yard progressed, which is the preliminary infrastructure plan came first to install the streets and the infrastructure that I talked about, so that then the buildings could follow soon thereafter, which is what we intend to do. And we also are looking at the design principles. Originally, there were design principles that were approved for North Potomac Yard that are quite voluminous and very specific. And we will be looking at design principles and revision enhancement to those design principles to really talk more about design excellence. We believe that we have very, very qualified teams, and we're building those teams daily. And so we want to talk about design excellence, what makes a great building, what makes a great place, and those design principles will hopefully be approved in March, and those design principles will then inform PIDAC's work in looking at what we are proposing to make sure that we are hitting that mark, that we are delivering that place that everybody is expecting, and that quality of architecture and distinction that we know Virginia Tech and JBG Smith can bring. And then we will continue our work, and in the fall of 2020, we will get approval of the development special use permit and associated applications like the Transportation Master Management Plan SUP, that's the TMP SUP, and any other ancillary approvals that might come along with a typical development special use permit. So we really appreciate you all coming out for this first meeting. We have a lot of work ahead of us. We're going to have a lot of engagement and meetings where we will engage with you. And we're just very excited to finally be out in the public and kicking off what is going to be a spectacular place for the city of Alexandria. I think with that, what our plan is to open it up for questions. We have 2 microphones, one on either side. I'm going to ask Bailey and Brandy and Ken to join me up here, and we will kind of field those questions. Once again, let me clarify that we are early, so we're going to answer whatever questions we can, but if we don't know the answer, we're just going to tell you we don't know, and we'll take it down, mark it down, and be ready to answer it at a future date. So, questions?
Somebody?
Okay. Forgive me if these are out of scope at this point. I'm not sure at this point how detailed you are on some of the walking and biking accessibility issues. If you note where the VTech campus will be at the north end to the metro station, it seems like you're envisioning people walking down I think it's called New Street A.
Correct.
To get there. It's likely, since there's a park, and I know there's a plan to have a shared use path, a trail in effect in that park, that people will go that way. It's not clear to me if there is envisioned a sidewalk on both sides of New Street B, sort of the servicey street on the east. It would be desirable if there was to deconflict the pedestrians and likely bicyclists on the trail. Throughout the region, there are issues with cyclists and pedestrians sharing trails. Also, I believe, and again, this may be out of your control and in the cities, but that the trails only plan to be 10 feet, which again, especially if you have a large number of pedestrians, and there's a lot of density there, so there undoubtedly will be. It could add to a conflict there. So you either need a wider trail or a sidewalk for the pedestrians or both.
So I think you are correct that we are early in the process.
so,
The master
yeah.
plan gives us some guidance on how we're going to treat sidewalks and the shared trail and even that shared street on the eastern side. But that's very useful input that we will take into consideration as we move forward with the city in designing the trail and the street and the sidewalks.
I'll leave aside my question about where the trail will connect to at the north end, because I think that's clearly also out of scope then.
All right. Thank you.
You mentioned sort of the switch to the below-grade parking from the above-grade parking. I wondered if you could talk a little more generally about the amount of parking. I live on Hume Avenue. I'm very excited about Virginia Tech being here, the new businesses, all the new people. I'm not excited about a lot more cars in the area, particularly, as you've said again and again, we've got a metro station right here. It'd be great for the city to make that investment worth its while. It helps if there's ridership going to the metro. So can you talk about how much parking there will be and if there are ways to use the amount of parking as a way of encouraging people to get to the area by other means? Thank you.
So let me speak to the southern portion, and then I'll turn it over to Ken or Brandy to speak to the parking for Virginia Tech. Our preliminary coordinated development plans and DSUP plans shows that we will, when we did the plan in 2017, we came up with parking maximums. And the reason the city came up with parking maximums was to encourage us to keep the parking down. What we are showing is the ratios are at these parking maximums right now, but we will continue to look at that as we continue to develop the DSUP. And you can speak to Virginia Tech.
Sure. So much like you, we're very concerned to make sure you have enough parking for your students. If you're opening this up as a place to have a long-term relationship with the community and students, you want to make sure you build it right. So on 7W, that's our first phase. The thought is we'll go 2 levels below grade parking, and then we'll have surface parking in the lots where 7E and 4 are in the interim stages. How long that is, we don't know, but it's years probably. That'll allow us to base the next phase on exactly what the student usage is. So our goal and your goal is to build just enough parking that everybody uses it and to have enough for special events without overbuilding it. So we're going to be able to grow into our parking, and we think that's a great approach and allow us to calibrate it. The city also does a great job at this. We're looking at other universities as part of the transportation master plan study, the traffic impact study. So there'll be a very detailed report in a future meeting. We'll come to you and say exactly what we think our traffic usage will be and parking.
First of all, thank you so much for being out here. As a Potomac Yard resident, it's great to have you. You had mentioned phasing, and so I'm just curious, when you talk about phasing, who are you envisioning in the first phase, second phase, third phase, and just a time frame, if you even have it now, of what that looks like and who that looks like as we build out those phases?
So I think we will have a phasing plan necessarily, while for the southern portion of the site, our goal would be to construct everything. We want this to be like, the wharf in Alexandria with cranes and getting everything up at once. We are working with Metro because they need to build the Metro station, and so that'll impact kind of what we do when. Also, we want to make sure that we have office tenants lined up for the office, so that may have a slight impact. So you'll see phasing of buildings going up at different times. We're not quite there yet knowing which building will be first, but we will probably have a better idea of that as we move through the development special use permit process, because we need to identify that as we move forward from the city will expect a phasing plan. So I think we'll have more details on that. If we could do it all at once, we would, but there necessarily will be some lags between different buildings. Virginia Tech?
So slightly different answer for Virginia Tech. Brandy's direction and the university's direction is we're opening for students in the fall of 2024, and that'll be on building 7W. It sounds like a long way away, but then you need 3 years to build it. And that gives us about 2 years to get through entitlement and take the building down and work on roads. So our goal and our objective and our direction is probably a better term, is to open by the fall of 2024 with building 7W, and I'm sure as these next 2 years progress, we'll have more details on the other buildings that are going to follow at later phases. And we'll show you ultimately interim plans as that phasing program builds out, as Kathy mentioned.
Hi, Bill Hendrickson. I've been involved in this planning process for a long time as a citizen and community member. And I just wanted to give a few quick reactions to some of the things you've said. Virtually all of it positive. I think moving the school site makes a lot of sense. Putting the parking underground is a good thing. More office is good. And I think in particular, higher buildings are good too. I'm particularly concerned, I think, about the housing situation in the region and the city. The fact that we have a huge shortage of housing. So I personally would favor higher buildings as high as we can get it, and perhaps seeking some additional relief from the FAA to go higher in that location. The only disappointment is that you're no longer considering a movie theater and a fitness center. And I think that's something we talked a lot about when we were revising the 2010 plan. I think that's something that you should consider. What I'd like to know is how how JBG Lionstone is actually envisioning the non-Virginia Tech part of this. When I was involved in the 2010 plan and the 2017 revisions, we were thinking somewhere along the line of a mosaic district or a Reston Town Center. Have you got to that point yet? I mean, how are you envisioning this to work? And this is not just going to be for Virginia Tech. This is going to be a larger community.
So, Bill, I may have misspoken in that there will no longer be a theater and a fitness center kind of on that big scale in phase one. That does not mean that there couldn't be either or both of those in a future phase. As to the retail, we do have a retail consultant. I do think we're early on, but Bailey, do you want to say anything about that?
We are early, and to Kathy's point, while we've shifted from having sort of standalone retail in the first phase, we do still have 120,000 square feet of retail in that first phase. So it's not likely that we can fit a theater in the first phase, but a gym is definitely still on the table. And obviously we have the second phase, which has a huge wealth of opportunities on the retail front, which we hope to take advantage of and really program, because we agree with you. Virginia Tech is a wonderful audience and a partner that we want to make sure that we're serving their needs. But the size and scale of this development really provides a unique opportunity to also serve the wider community. And we recognize the value that the current retail center brings to the community. And so wanting to make sure that we're still bringing services and retailers that everybody wants to patronize is really a high priority for us.
Right, and the You know, I think that the larger community is the important part. You know, Virginia Tech should be part of that. But, you know, it's the people who live in the city who should be benefiting from it. And I think that, you know, the master plan does call for significant additional retail space along East Glebe Avenue in particular. And the original vision was that it could be possible that many of the big box stores we have there today could be relocated in the ground floors, first floors, second floors of taller buildings along East Glebe, including Target.
Absolutely, and that's something, you know, we have a captive retail center there that everybody recognizes a destination, and we have long-standing relationships with those tenants, and so we hope to, you know, keep those tenants on site as makes sense for them and for us, but we absolutely see those opportunities
Right,
in future
right.
phases.
But overall, I think this is really exciting, you know, what Virginia Tech is doing, and I look forward to further progress.
I would just add that thank you for your wonderful comments and those of others. And one thing you can kind of take confidence in, I think, is that we are championing for many of the same insights that you're providing. In other words, we're looking for pedestrian scale and we're looking for amenities for our students. They will certainly want a gym and maybe even a movie theater. And so that's exactly the kind of conversations we're having, how to make sure we're creating that really livable community with for our own students. And they're essentially the same things that you're pointing out. So that's our role as well.
Hi, quick question as it relates to the student housing experience. Will it be a campus environment for them, or will they be living in apartments, or a combination of both? What is your early thoughts on that?
Do you want to point to that? We see our students taking advantage of the housing that could be on site or elsewhere. We expect that they will be using the metro, and some of them will be sort of evening programs as well as daytime programs, so it'll be a real mix. And again, our goal is to create a community that they're part of that sort of porous nature, where our campus is very much embedded into the community and is not sort of a walled off ivory tower. That's one of the reasons we fought so hard for the green space. We all of course wanted it, but it was just spent a lot of time thinking about that, what really feels like a campus, but is also integrated into the community. So Virginia Tech will not build housing, but we will take advantage of housing locally, including here. Thank you.
Hi. So I understand you guys are at the concept phase, but you have gotten down to the detail of knowing like how many projecting how many parking spaces you all will need. But one of the things I was disappointed to see is that you guys didn't incorporate the small area plans, bicycle network recommendations at all. Silver Meteor Avenue is supposed to have some kind of enhanced bicycle corridor, and it's not clear from your concept that that's been implemented. Same with Westmont Drive.
So we actually, in our CDD concept plan, there is a sheet that shows the bike and bus rapid transit network, the bike network and the bus network, I think it is. Pedestrians. I'm sorry, bikes and pedestrians. I apologize. We
Okay.
don't, you're right, we don't have it in this PowerPoint today,
Yeah.
but it is a requirement of the CDD concept plan that we show the pedestrian and bike network. We also are very cognizant of bus circulation in the interim. Bus rapid transit, the dedicated lane will come with the future phase on the west side of Potomac Avenue, but all of the kind of transit, pedestrian, and bike considerations are going into the plan. You're right, though, we did not have an exhibit tonight.
Okay, I'm just worried that, you know, we'll get so far along in the process, we're like, oh, it's too late, we can't possibly shrink the size of these buildings, and we can't possibly remove this on-street parking. Because oftentimes, this is what ends up happening. The other thing I wanted to ask you about is, so I notice Building 18 does not have a street behind it. It kind of abuts to the park. And I think that's really cool. I love buildings that do that, and I think they're fabulous places to be. One thing I'd like you guys to consider is building a Dutch-style bicycle parking space, either at grade or underground, behind the building, so that people can access that and leave their bikes in a protected place, instead of, you know, outside at a rack, and you hope that it'll be there when you come back. It doesn't actually cost that much money. We've got them integrated with a couple metro stations, and since the entrance is right there, I think there'd be a huge draw for retail, people coming to work in that whole neighborhood, and especially students too. And thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? All right, then. We don't want to keep you any longer than we need to. We really appreciate you all coming out and engaging with us and learning more about what it is we're going to do. We have provided this presentation to the city, so Stephanie will be putting it up on the website if you want to come back to it. So I saw some people taking pictures with their phones to kind of go back. It will be on the website, so you can go back and take a look at that. Is our submission on that website as well? And the submission is actually on the website as well. So if you go to www.alexandriava.gov and you look for North Potomac Yard, you will see the plans that we filed most recently for the CDD concept plan and the development special use permit concept plan. And that website will continue to populate as we have new submissions that go into the city and as we build from the ground up, as it were, in terms of our plan and architectural development. So thank you very much. We'll look forward to seeing you next time.